good people don't smoke marijuana.
I've known Larry for a long time.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
The medical marijuana. The medical marijuana. Radio show. The medical marijuana for you and me. Ah, yeah, the medical marijuana. Whoa, 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 yeah, the medical. It's the medical marijuana show. You will know.
Good evening, afternoon, or morning, everybody, depending upon where you are. Welcome to another edition of Medical Marijuana Radio. This one is for Saturday, the 24th of August, 2019. I'm your host, Larry Love, and I'm here every week to bring you the latest information on the fight for legal cannabis, whether it's medical or adult use, responsible adult use. And this is sort of a digital history over the last 10 years of the fight that everyone is involved with. We have a very interesting show. Over the years with medical cannabis, it's been hard to find doctors. But we're going to have Ray Correa on. Ray Correa is the COO of MarijuanaDoctors.com. They just celebrated their 10th anniversary, and as well as Medical Marijuana Radio 10th anniversary this year as well. And we're going to be talking to Ray just after a little bit of news. First up, a little community bulletin board type stuff. David Valdez from Brief Relief is having an event next week in Espanola, New Mexico. It has to do with education of using cannabis and CBD, and also he has a special hemp conference going on as well. So here's David to tell you about this before we get to the news. David, tell us about the event you have coming up on August 31st in Espanola.
Yes, Larry. So we have a health talk and a hemp farming talk that we're going on. The health talk is a plant-based nutrition talk with all the enzymes and nutrition that our bodies need. And the more important one that I am really excited about is the hemp farming talk that's happening at 5 o'clock, where we're going to be going over the hemp industrial industry here in New Mexico, how individuals can get into the industry, and learning the differences between hemp and marijuana and the THC percentages and a whole lot more.
So give us the times. I know you're having a health talk at like 2 in the afternoon with Devin. So go ahead and tell us what's going on with that.
So yeah, the 2 o'clock, Devin is going to be having a health talk with some other health educators. Her name is Kim Molina and Michelle Lucero. And they have been promoting this all-natural enzyme, vitamin, nutrition approach that literally is changing lives, almost just as much as CBD has been changing lives. And so we're basically connecting them and putting them together so that individuals can live happier, healthier, better quality of life through not just our CBD program, but through this new program that we found through plant-based nutrition that Devin is going to be speaking about at 2 o'clock on the 31st of August. And that health talk is a free event, so there's no purchase necessary to attend. Anybody can go, and it's going to be great and wonderful for those who are seeking to, live a better, healthier quality of life and being able to have access to medications and, should I say, nutritional, natural supplements that actually work.
Okay, so that's at 2 o'clock, and then at 5 o'clock you'll be speaking about the hemp industry here in New Mexico. Is there a fee for that event, or is that? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so there's a $25 registration fee that people can go on our Facebook event page and register or give us a call. And it's gonna be interactive, fully integrative. It's gonna talk about all kinds of things when it comes to even the history of hemp in America, politics, past, present, and future. Just some of the headlines of where we're going to be talking about how hemp works with textiles, medicine, food, fuel, etc., and the different ways of growing hemp and methods of growing hemp. So we're going to give everybody a whole interactive outlook on how the industrial hemp industry works and how they, if they were choosing to do so, can get into the industry themselves.
What kind of investment do you think the average small farmer might need to get into the hemp industry?
Advancement, like, monetary wise?
Yes, investment monetarily. How much money should you have, even thinking about getting into this?
Right. Good question. So basically, the average cost per acre is what I like to tell individuals is around $15,000 to $25,000, depending on, of course, their land. If their land needs more work to it done, then if it didn't need more work to it done, like in the soil and stuff like that.
Right.
How they're choosing to grow it. And of course, there's going to be a learning curve. The first couple of seasons and years is going to be, kind of not really totally experimenting, but deciphering exactly which strains work best in our environment, in our climate, in our altitude, different parts of the state. And so we're here to help with all of that.
All right, so this is the kind of information that one can get by coming on, what is that, Saturday the 31st of August at 5 p.m. is the Hemp Talk, and you're going to be speaking there, and people can get more information at Brief Relief and at David's Brief Relief webpage and event page. David, thanks a lot. I hope a lot of people come out and get educated about hemp.
Me too, there. Thanks a lot for this opportunity, and of course, anybody can go on our website, give us a call. They could even text our phone number, email us, and we'll always respond back.
All right, go ahead. Why don't you give out the phone number real quick?
So our Albuquerque phone number is 505-433-1773. And if they want, they can call our Espanola office location also, which is 505-672-8772.
That's great. Thank you, David. We really appreciate it. That's David Valdez from Brief Relief. Okay, again, that's next Saturday, the 31st. Okay, now, this next piece is really, really important. If you give a crap about the legalization of medical cannabis and the legalization of adult use cannabis to coexist, we've seen what's happened in the past. So this next piece, it's 11 and a half minutes long, but I think it's very, very important. If you care about people not going to jail for this plant, whether it's recreational use or medical use, we have to look at what's happened in the past. Okay, now Andrew DeAngelo, Steve DeAngelo's brother, that they are the co-owners, I believe, of Harborside up in Northern California. They've been around the longest. They're the biggest. They're the most knowledgeable. So earlier this week, Parisa Rad from Women Grow had a wonderful, another one of the wonderful talks in Arizona, because they're about to legalize in Arizona there, and they didn't pass it last time they ran it. But Andrew DeAngelo, I felt really hit on a lot of points about what to do, what not to do, learn from other people's mistakes, don't screw it up, because it's harder to change things afterwards. So here, if you don't want to listen to Andrew DeAngelo, fast forward 11 and a half minutes. But I think it's really important. You people are my core listeners, and if you are interested in your state to legalize for adult use and medical, we have to protect medical and not make the same mistake. So here is Andrew DeAngelo. Sit back or fast forward through it. But this is important stuff. That's why I've never played an 11-minute clip before. Here we go. Women Grow. Thank you, Parisa Rad.
So let me tell you about what happened in California. California had legal medical in 1996, first state in the world, first place in the world to end prohibition. And then we didn't pass adult use until 2016, 20 years later. And when we passed medical, it was mandated that the state needed to regulate it. Well, they didn't. For 20 years, they did not regulate anything. So the local people had to regulate. And that's how this whole patchwork of different rules and different regulatory structures and different tax structures started to happen in California. And that's very problematic when you're running a business. It's helpful if everywhere in your state sort of has the same framework. It sort of has the same tax rates. It's helpful, right? California didn't do that. So then activists, we tried to pass adult use, very much like Arizona. We lost on our first go-around in 2014. We made the mistake of putting it on the ballot in an off-year election. That was a disaster for us because the progressive and liberal voters who care about cannabis just didn't come out on an off-year election. And so we lost. 3 or 4 points, very close. Then 2 years later, not unlike Arizona, we worked hard to get it back on the ballot again. And California's a big, complicated state, and we were pretty broke after losing in 2014. And so we needed some help from some donors. And whoever donates and finances the initiative generally plays a pretty big role in writing the language of that initiative. And the language is very important because if you don't get the language right, the program might not work so good. And if you give up too much to pass the law, like local control, we gave a lot of power to the local people in the adult use law. That was a mistake because most of them banned it. 60% of municipalities in California banned adult use, 80% banned retail. So now, in the largest state, cannabis state in the world, 80% of our transactions, even today, a year and a half after we legalized adult use, is happening in the illicit market. We only have 20% of the transactions. Now, we didn't think that it was going to be that bad when we started gearing up for January 1st, 2018, that first sale. We figured, okay, we had to give up something to the locals. We had to give up something to the tax man. We had to give up a lot to the tax man in California. Tax people, I should say. But we thought, well, weed's legal now, and the people will come because it's legal. We've got lab testing. We're going to have this great industry, and it's going to work despite the local control and despite the taxes. And we were wrong about that. And right now in California, most businesses are struggling to make a profit because a lot of the patients that were in our program before adult use are in the illicit market. Certainly if you're a heavy consumer of cannabis, like me, I consume a lot of cannabis every single day, hundreds of milligrams, smoke about a quarter ounce of weed a day. And it's very hard if you're a heavy consumer of cannabis to deal with a 50% increase in the price, which is basically what happened when we went from medical to adult. The price of cannabis went up 50%.
Damn.
How many people got a 50% raise ever in their life? Very rare. So the price increase of cannabis was much higher than anybody's wages increased. So what happens? People go to the illicit market. The illicit market is very talented and good at providing access, wide access. You can buy a bag of weed just about any place in this country pretty darn easily. The other thing the illicit market's good at is keeping prices steady, if not pretty low. When I was in college, 1980, you could buy a really good bag of weed cost about $50 an eighth. Today, really good bag of weed costs about $50 an eighth. So the price has been stable in the illicit market. The supply has been robust in the illicit market. Access is easy. And the customer experience in the illicit market, by and large, if you're not getting anything contaminated, not getting anything dirty, not getting anything from a violent cartel, the customer experience is not too bad. You're in somebody's house, you have a pretty close relationship with the person who's supplying you cannabis. You have a bond of trust because you're both doing something you're not supposed to be doing. And the experience is pretty good, right? So why the hell should I go to Harborside and pay 50% more? I'm a heavy consumer of cannabis. Why would I do that? The answer is you don't. You go to the illicit market. So that's why we only have 20% of the transactions in California are happening in the legal market. So what's happening? All this money's coming in from Canada and other places into California. California, everyone's so excited about California. Each other to capture this. And what's going to eventually happen, what I worry about, is the investors are going to say, bye-bye California. We're going to take our money and our energy someplace else. Maybe Nevada. Or maybe Oklahoma, that has more dispensaries in Oklahoma right now than we have in California, if you can believe that. So, access and affordability are the two things that we have to work really hard to achieve in the legal market. If we want to create one market for cannabis. And that's what we want to do, because we cannot launch Prohibition 2.0 to protect a few licensees that are building moats around their businesses. Prohibition 2.0 will not work. Prohibition 1.0 didn't effing work. 2.0 is not going to work either. The illicit market is smarter than the cops. I'm sorry. Maybe we wish it wasn't that way, but it is that way, and they will win. So what we have to do as an industry, not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get this done, particularly in California. But you have an opportunity here in Arizona, perhaps to learn from some of the lessons that we've been through, perhaps to do some things a little bit different. And if you do bake high taxes into this initiative, understand what that might do to empower the illicit market. Understand that very carefully. You're introducing lab testing, fantastic. Something the illicit market will never be able to do. Use that to get people into the shops. One of the mistakes we made is we were so excited January 2018 to sell legal weed to adults. We did not spend enough energy differentiating ourselves from the illicit market. So the first couple weeks of January 2018, man, I had a line around the block. Everybody wanted to come into the dispensary and buy legal weed, and they were all so excited, and we were so excited. And I didn't have a big sign that said, we're lab tested. You don't have to worry about pesticides or herbicides in this product. You don't have to worry about heavy metals in this product. But I didn't do that. And so people came in, they saw the prices, they bought a little weed, and then they left. And they didn't come back. Those that had a connection, right? If you had a connection, why do you come back? If you don't have a connection, then you're going to come back. So this is the central challenge that we're all facing. So if you have high taxes, understand what that's going to do. And then market the legal industry to differentiate from the illicit industry. I'm very happy to see you at home grow in the initiative. Very important that we allow people to grow at home. They're not going to threaten your supply chain. They're going to combat the illicit market, right? Because the home grower, they're going to go to the illicit market before they come into the dispensary. So let them grow their own. Then they won't go to the illicit market. That pushes the illicit market closer to us. Again, we don't want Prohibition 2.0. So that's my experience, is that adult use is critical. It's a critical milestone for us to achieve. The way in which we do that will determine outcomes. And so be smart. learn from the mistakes that we've made in places like California. Very hard to fix an initiative once it's been voted into law. Elected officials are hesitant to reform it. For 2 years, I've been trying to get Sacramento to lower the tax. We failed to pass the bills. For a couple of years, I've been trying to get Sacramento to take away local control if that municipality voted for Prop 64, adult use. You shouldn't be able to ban it if your people voted for it. That's democracy.
That's democracy. That it cut off right there. And again, I want to thank Women Grow and Parisa Rad for broadcasting that. It's very important what Andrew DeAngelo just said. Home grow, very important. Why should we still be putting people in jail for growing cannabis? It doesn't make any sense. So again, just to recap, learn by other people's mistakes. Don't let it happen and then say you'll fix it later. It'll take years to fix the crap that we will legalize with, and look at the other states. See what they've done wrong. It's really, really important that home grow be involved with the legalization of adult use cannabis. Now, here in New Mexico, they tried on and off year last year to pass for legalization for adult use, and what they ended up compromising was to have state stores. Now, state stores, the state shouldn't be in the business of selling cannabis. They're going to get their taxes. And again, overtaxing, by the way, legal adult use cannabis is also going to drive people away from buying it legally and go right to the black market. But anyway, in Utah, they had a model. They passed medical cannabis. They had a model where state stores were going to be part of their system. So Utah just this week decided to abandon the state-run cannabis, and I hope that New Mexico will listen to this. Something to learn from Utah. Sounds kind of strange, but it's real. Here's this report.
The Senate Majority Leader tells Fox 13 a bill is coming that could end up in a special session of the legislature next month. It dumps the idea of a state-run cannabis dispensary network in favor of private dispensaries.
We recognize there were some challenges there. There was some anxiety.
The state-run medical cannabis dispensary network will be eliminated in a bill set to be introduced for a special session of the legislature. It comes after the Davis and Salt Lake County attorneys told Fox 13 they were advising their local health departments against participating in distributing medical cannabis out of fear county workers could be prosecuted by the feds.
It's ironic, the day that you did the report on your channel with the Davis County attorney, I got a draft piece of the legislation that eliminated the local health departments from that issue.
So now the counties will be out and the number of private dispensaries will be increased from 7 to 12 and spread across the state.
Does this get us back to what Prop 2 was? Because it seems like it's headed back toward what that original they had conveyed in the ballot initiative.
In a way, yes. I would say that it gets it back to where you have more pharmacies in the state.
Voters approved Proposition 2 last year. The legislature replaced it with a compromise bill creating more of a state-controlled system.
I've met with legislative leadership and talked about that issue.
At his monthly news conference, the governor says he's open to calling a special session to make fixes to the cannabis law.
We want to make sure that we have everything in place so that we can meet the distribution deadline of the first part of March of 2020.
Medical cannabis advocates say this is a good move. The Epilepsy Association of Utah, which is suing the state over the Prop 2 replacement bill, says it's a small step in the right direction. On the Hill, Ben Winslow, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Okay, so again, no state stores in Utah, and we don't want state stores here in New Mexico. If you're in a state that's going to legalize for cannabis, whether it's medical or adult use, fight against state stores. It's just not right. I know there's people here in New Mexico that are for that, but hopefully they're not making the laws. Andrew DeAngelo mentioned a few minutes ago that Oklahoma has more dispensaries than California. Now, Oklahoma has nowhere near the amount of people in California, but they have more dispensaries. That's how fast. In 1 year, tomorrow, I think, Josh McCurdy said that it was August 25th is a year that Oklahoma passed their laws, gave out licenses, and they have more dispensaries than California. So one of the problems, of course, that we're having here and people everywhere in the cannabis industry is having is that Facebook wants to mess with us. Even though it's legal in your state, they put people in Facebook jail, they shut them down. Now there's a lawsuit in Oklahoma against Facebook. Here's this report.
Frustrating, it's irritating, it's aggravating.
An Oklahoma City dispensary owner talking about her struggles with Facebook.
I'm currently in Facebook jail for sharing a post.
Monica Green says her shop, along with several other medical marijuana businesses, have been targeted by the social media giant, taking down their business pages, not allowing them to interact with their customers.
Sometimes Facebook is an easy way for people to look without having to call every dispensary in town to find out who has what.
Green's Bakery, along with 36 other businesses, have filed a lawsuit in Tulsa County Court against Facebook and its owners, citing a pattern of targeting the Oklahoma medical marijuana industry, saying Facebook has made it a point to discriminate, censor, and harass, and is purposefully causing financial harm.
And when our pages go down, it shows trends that our business also goes down as well. That people just assume that we're no longer in business.
Once your page is gone, you can't contact them, you can't say, what did I do wrong?
Patrick Gauman is a social media expert. He says Facebook jail can hurt a business. He says since pot is a federally illegal drug, Facebook has been slow to move, but has relaxed their crackdowns in states where marijuana and medical marijuana has been legalized.
The whole medical marijuana thing is just slowly, it takes a long time for Facebook to accept it, and with lack of clear direction, what they tend to do is be more on the conservative side and block those things.
The suit itself is for $75,000, what the businesses call pennies for a multi-billion-dollar company.
We're just trying to make a stand and get their attention and let them know that, unfortunately, we count on them. We use them to market our business.
Well, Green tells me that Facebook has not yet responded to the suit at all. The social media giant hasn't responded to our emails either.
Let's see what happens. Let's keep a watch on that lawsuit because it affects all of us. All right, before we take a little break and then come back with Ray Correa, this next piece is really important. It's important to me personally. I lived through this with my mom a few years ago. Dementia is horrible. It affects not only the person but the family around them. Cannabis is going to be hopefully recognized as a great treatment for Alzheimer's and dementia. It actually rebuilds brain cells. People told us for the last 50 years, you're burning out your brain cells when you're smoking some cannabis. No, it rebuilds brain cells. So here's this report, and it affects a lot of us.
Alzheimer's disease and other dementias can take a toll on both caregivers and the person living with the disease. As it advances, those living with the disease can develop behaviors like anxiety, restlessness, and even aggression. As KJZZ's Kathy Ritchie reports, some providers and caregivers are looking at medical cannabis as an alternative treatment.
Let's see. I know exactly when the red flag went up.
Sandy Mercer is talking about the first time she noticed something was really wrong with her mother, Irene.
Prior to that, I was just thinking it was old age. She was 89.
Mercer and her mother had taken a trip back to the East Coast, where they're from.
And flew in on a Friday night. And on Saturday morning, I got up and she was putting her eyebrows on with a ballpoint pen.
Irene was eventually diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Mercer tried to care for her mother for about a year without any support. But like a lot of people with Alzheimer's, Irene developed behaviors.
She would be walking around the house looking for her mother, who died when she was in her 20s, and saying, I need to go home, where's my home?
Irene was sundowning. Sundowning is a symptom of Alzheimer's disease, and it typically occurs later in the afternoon or early evening. It's an especially difficult behavior to manage. It can trigger restlessness, confusion, and agitation. At that point, Mercer had joined an online support community.
And in that online support group is where I started seeing mentioning of medical marijuana to help out with the sundowning.
Although medical cannabis is still illegal at the federal level, most states have legalized its use, including Arizona. Still, using medical cannabis to treat dementia patients isn't typical among providers, so Mercer did her own research. She also obtained medical marijuana cards for both herself and her mother.
How did you actually figure out what to give your mom?
I did a lot of research online, and I'll show you a couple things that I found. But It was more or less trial and error.
Using herself as the guinea pig. It took her a while to find the right combination of THC, the psychoactive compound in cannabis, and CBD, a non-intoxicating cannabinoid found in hemp.
And what I would see is just that she wouldn't go into that acute afternoon sundowning.
Mercer's mother could have been the exception, or maybe she was the rule. But more and more caregivers and even some providers are considering alternatives like CBD and THC. In June, the community group Dementia Friendly Tempe hosted a talk about medical marijuana and dementia. It was a packed house. Jan Doherty is a special projects coordinator with the Banner Alzheimer's Institute. She helped facilitate the meeting.
And so caregivers are saying, hey, I've heard that marijuana is being used or somebody's using gummies, and we just felt that it was time to have an informed talk by a physician.
So Dementia Friendly invited Dr. Walter Neary, a geriatrician with the University of Arizona College of Medicine, to talk about medical cannabis. Neary, a dementia specialist, is in the early stages of a small study, so far only 10 to 15 participants, that'll look at the effects of medical cannabis in patients who have dementia with behavioral problems.
To be quite frank with you, I'm kind of desperate because all the medicines that we traditionally use all have side effects.
Like Seroquel, Zyprexa, and Risperdal, which are all antipsychotics, and mood stabilizers such as Depakote. And the risks associated with those drugs, he says, often outweigh the benefits.
So I'm looking for another alternative, and if that would be marijuana, then that would be good.
But even if Dr. Neary proves that medical cannabis can help curb behaviors and improve quality of life, will those with the disease and their caregivers seek it out? According to the Arizona Department of Health Services, as of June 2019, only 105 people listed Alzheimer's as the reason why they obtained a medical marijuana card. There are currently more than 200,000 cardholders in the state. Here's Jan Doherty again.
With this current group of older adults, remember, they grew up during a time where marijuana was very much frowned upon.
Marijuana, the burning weed.
Reefer Madness was a 1936 film that depicted the downward spiral of two teenagers who tried marijuana. While the film might have scared an entire generation,
the discussion in the Boomer group will be a bit different because this is a group that was readily available. Many of them did experiment or have continued to use marijuana throughout their lives.
While we don't know a lot about the effects of CBD and THC on people with dementia, their loved ones are hearing stories, and they're willing to try anything to ease any discomfort, which means patients, families, providers, and those who work in the cannabis industry all need to be a part of this conversation. Kathy Ritchie, KJZZ News, Phoenix.
A lot of great information there. Dementia and Alzheimer's causes an agitation to those who are afflicted, and cannabis seems to take that agitation away. So it's a much more comfortable interaction with an Alzheimer's or dementia patient. Anyway, we're going to be right back in just a second with Ray Correa from marijuanadoctors.com, and we're going to talk all about their 10th anniversary and what they've been doing for 10 years to help medical patients. And before we do that, though, we're going to take a short little break, and I have a very special person doing our bumper back into the interview today, one of my buddies, so make sure you listen to the bumper. We'll be right back after this.
It's all about the 420 MMJ Radio. The medical marijuana. The medical marijuana radio. Radio show.
Hi, my name is Anthony Brick. I'm a medical cannabis patient, and you're listening to Medical Marijuana Radio Show. Peace.
And we're back. Welcome to Medical Marijuana Radio. I have Ray Correa on right now. Ray is the COO of marijuanadoctors.com. And welcome to Medical Marijuana Radio, Ray.
How you doing, Larry? Nice to be here today.
My pleasure. So this is your 10th anniversary, just as ours is, correct?
Yes, Friday marked our 10-year anniversary.
Well, congratulations on that. Let me tell you a little story about why you guys are probably in business, because I suffered the same problem many people around the country suffer, and that is not finding a doctor, a medical person who is willing to sign a recommendation. So in 2009, when I got my card, I had to search around. It took months actually before I found a doctor at that time who was willing to do it. It was early on in the program.
But my partner, Jason, he's the CEO. He started the company about 10 years ago. And the main reason was, it was practically impossible to find someone for this alternative medication that, and not only that, it was, there was not enough resources out there from what the process is, the procedure. So that being said, when he realized that there wasn't enough information out there, he decided to build marijuanadoctors.com to really educate the consumer so they have more options and can make a decision. And then eventually, we bridge the gap between the patient, physician, with being a trusted resource by the consumer.
Right. So also, besides educating the consumers, I found at the beginning, 10 years ago, and later than that even, that the doctors out there had no concept of what cannabis and how to use it and so forth. So how did you find doctors to get into your network that were knowledgeable about this, or did you have to educate them a little bit as well?
Absolutely. So I would say still to this day, in every new state. Now, look, I'm not a medical practitioner at all, and I don't give advice on how to treat their patients. However, they ask me all the time. So we try to direct them to appropriate places, or we network them with other physicians that could give them a little bit of guidance. I can tell you that, you're exactly right. We speak to doctors on a daily basis, and in every new state, the doctors really, they're misinformed, or they're not informed enough. So I think that's another area which can really be exploited to help the physicians capitalize on it. So what we did actually, we have a strategic relationship with a company called Extra Step Assurance. They provide continuing medical education credits, and our medical director, Dr. Joseph Rosado, he is one of the physicians that give that continuing medical education, and doctors do get 2 CME credits, which is obviously great. It's necessary as part of their protocol, and that really gives them the ability to learn how to use this medicine and how to use it in conjunction with patient treatment. But there still are so many holes to fill. So we do our best putting as much research that we find, case studies, and we really are a resource that's a one-stop place where you could find any information that you want to know about the state laws, the procedures, if they have a CBD program, and also, which has become very popular, is telemedicine, which is offered in 3 states. It's part of our platform and part of our service, where a doctor could literally see a patient on demand. And a state like New York, for example, once they see the physician and get evaluated, it takes about 2 to 3 weeks to get your card in the mail. Once you get that, you can go right back onto our website. And we have a dispensary section that we just launched about 2.5 months ago. We're still hiring salespeople. So any listeners are out there that are looking for a full-time job and you live in New York, look us up on the internet, and you can, of course, send your resume, because we are hiring some salesmen for dispensaries, because we want to get the word out. So the patient can go back on our site, and in New York, they can actually order products right from the website, and it goes right to the dispensary. You upload your medical card and all the other relevant information, and then you can actually get the medicine delivered to your house, which I think is very innovative, and I think in the future is going to catch on, and that will probably be a very large percentage of how the industry comes to fruition.
Right. So in New York at this time, do you have any idea how many patients are in the medical cannabis program at this point?
To be honest with you, I don't know the exact number. What I can tell you that we're very confident that we've referred at least over 25% of the patients that have been certified.
Okay, so are patients also having a problem finding doctors? And so, like, for instance, in New York, where you're based out of, although you cover the whole United States, how many doctors do you have available for New York patients? In your...
I would say we have somewhere in that question, I guess it can vary, right? So on our, we could have one practice that's listed. They could have 6 doctors that work there. And then we can have one doctor that has 6 practices in different cities, and he could be the only certifying physician. I would say it's close to about 80 doctors last time I checked. We operate in all the states, so I don't know every number in every state, but I would say it's about 80 practices we have, which the average practice has 2.5 to 3 doctors.
So you mentioned telemedicine a couple of minutes ago. Different states have different rules and laws regarding telemedicine. You and I had a conversation the other day in our pre-interview, and we talked about New Mexico, where I live right now. And from what we deciphered, what you deciphered, was that you have to see a live person, a doctor or nurse practitioner or whatever first, and then after that, for renewals, they can have telemedicine. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, what state were you referring to?
New Mexico, where I am.
Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, yeah, we did talk about that the other day, and I did look into it. You cannot get certified on the initial visit. You have to have an in-person visit physically in the office. But after that, as a matter of fact, we just started talking about that with our team because I think it's a great opportunity because in a state like New Mexico, you have people spread out throughout the state. And when you have ill people, you don't want them to have to drive 2 or 3 hours to get the medication they need.
Right. Well, that happens here in New Mexico. Unfortunately, there's not dispensaries in outlying areas, and those areas aren't being served, and it's hard for them to get medicine. So delivery, obviously, is always a good option. Some people have to drive 3 hours each way or more to go to a dispensary in some of the big states. I mean, we're a huge state, not people-wise, but land-wise, and obviously other states as well will have the same kind of problems where people that live remote cannot either get the medicine or get a license to get the medicine. So what states, you said there's 3 states that you could actually certify over the telephonically?
Yes, over telemedicine. And by the way, just for the record, our platform is completely HIPAA compliant. We abide by all HIPAA guidelines. And yes, there's New York, California, and my understanding is Oklahoma and Missouri now, and Oklahoma happens to be one of the hottest states in the countries, and of course New York. So my understanding is that in Missouri and Oklahoma, and typically when the guidelines don't explicitly say you can't, then it's a gray area, but doctors will do it, and from my experience, the state eventually comes out and says, yes, you can do it, or yes, you can't.
Right. So that's like the initial evaluation. So what about renewals? Do people renew through your system as well every year?
Actually, yes. What our system does is we have an automated process. So as long as the physician is marking it properly in our electronic medical records platform, then the patient will get a reminder about a month before their certification is up to come by the office and to get the renewal or to do it via telemedicine.
All right. So then when you sign someone up and make the recommendation, your doctors do, obviously many different states have different turnaround times, and a new state like New York and some of the other states, they're not going to know how fast they can turn stuff around. We had a problem here in New Mexico some years ago where they got bogged down, and instead of taking the 30 days that it was supposed to, it took like 90 and 100 days, and it really got bogged down. So are you seeing that problem in new states?
Sometimes you do, but surprisingly, Oklahoma got their program up and running quicker than just about anyone else out there. Where we typically see the real aberrations are during, the state will announce that the medicine will be ready on this date. Louisiana, point in case, is one of those states. They were supposed to be ready last summer. They pushed it back to October, then January, then April, and it just became available just in the last several weeks.
Right, and I believe you're talking about Oklahoma, right?
That what I was referring to right there was Louisiana.
Oh, Louisiana, right. Okay.
Oklahoma, I did mention, they got their program surprisingly up and running
Faster,
quicker than just about anybody else out there.
Quicker than I've ever seen before. Plus, they have so many dispensaries. They really gave out lots of licenses. So my question, do you have any idea about what the testing is like of this medicine in Oklahoma? Do they have labs? Is this stuff being tested?
Of course. Every state has their own program and protocol to test the medicine. I don't know the specific companies that they've contracted to do that. There are a number of them out there, and they vary per state. But in every medical program, the product is vigorously tested, and unfortunately, sometimes in states, even though they're approved and licensed, they have issues with their product, whether it be mold, whether it be some chemical compound that isn't good to ingest.
Right. A lot of these people have never grown cannabis before, so there's a learning curve. Everybody thinks because they used to grow a couple plants in the backyard, they can now grow 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 plants. It's not the same. So there's a lot of disparity in the quality of the medicine around the country for sure. So when people come to marijuanadoctors.com for their certification, is the renewal cheaper than the initial evaluation?
I would say 99% of the time, yes, the doctors do charge a little bit less. And I can tell you, believe it or not, in New York, the physicians, the Department of Financial Services actually said that an insurance company cannot deny a claim even if it results in a medical marijuana recommendation. So to see how this plays out is going to be quite interesting. And I know when we spoke previously, you had mentioned to me, a question that you wanted to discuss, and that was the impact that recreational is having on the medical industry.
Yes. My question would be to you. You sort of framed it just now, but what we've seen in the last few years with adult use legalization happening, programs in Washington State and Oregon and other states have either disappeared or they get very small. So how, in my opinion, by the way, Ray, and I'm sure you'll love me for this, I believe that the medical cannabis industry should be separate, totally separate from the recreational adult use, because the end users are two different customers. So separating them is my idea and other people's idea of how to keep medical going. So how has this been affecting you, and your model in states where there is adult use?
Well, I can tell you, regardless of what happens, we are so committed to providing a great user experience and getting the word out there, providing the resources that one needs in our lives to make a informed decision, right? The reason why the world has evolved to what it is because of information. And the better that we as United States citizens and even in the global landscape has an understanding of what is possible, we should be afforded the opportunity to make a decision and choose what we think is best when we're guided by a medical practitioner that's qualified to give you that treatment. I will say that in California, you saw a dip of about 30% in terms of the amount of cards that were being issued. In other rec states, that number's dipped down and then comes back up a little bit for a couple different reasons. In California, for example, the average person in the medical industry spends about $2,000 a year. Well, if you're a rec user or you're buying it on a recreational side and you're trying to go that route and think that it's better to get a card, I think that's a mistake, because you're not getting the care and the guidance. Even though you might have used it recreationally, every person is different. Everyone's DNA is different.
Agreed.
And sometimes you need to test, right, and titrate or increase or decrease the quantity of CBD, THC, or other cannabinoids that your doctor's recommended. So in California, there's an excise tax and sales tax of about 15 to 23%. So think about it in these terms. You spend $2,000 a year, you're paying between $300 to $460 in taxes. Well, to get your card in California on the initial, it's probably about $100 and anywhere between $50 to $100 depending on where you go to get that renewal, right? So as you can see, you save on the tax end. And the way we're positioned, we built this company to be extremely HIPAA compliant and abide by a scheduling change when it does occur. So we're so positioned in a very, very compliant manner. So when we see a scheduling change, we feel that we're really going to be the go-to company at that point, and that's where the market really explodes.
Right.
Another part of the answer to that question is, let's be realistic. Who wants to go and spend $2,000, $3,000 a year when eventually what we think is going to happen, there'll be a lot more products that are FDA approved, and we have an opioid epidemic because you go pay $20 and go get go get a prescription from a doctor. Then you go to a CVS or Walgreens and pay $10 for 30 pills that could possibly kill you.
Right. And how much is the tax on those 30 pills? There
On
isn't.
those
There
30
isn't
pills,
any.
I think it's
No, there's no tax.
There's no tax.
There's no tax. So that's the discrimination that we have in our medical cannabis industry. Patients are being charged tax. This is illegal medicine, just like those pills that you just talked about were. And there should be no tax on medical cannabis. And hopefully the future will get rid of this discrimination of taxing people using cannabis as medicine.
Eventually, we will have more drugs that are FDA approved.
Right.
And that's really, in my opinion, probably going to come 4 to 6 years out when we have a federal schedule change. And that's when the market really explodes, because a lot of people are staying behind the scenes and not trying this medicine because they can't afford it.
Right.
And it's really a shame.
Right. Either they can't afford it or they can't find a doctor who would do the recommendation. And that's where you guys come in. That's where you guys excel. So as far as this, you say you see a 30% drop in medical cards in states that have adult use. Is that what you just said before?
Yes, right around that range. And what I expect to happen is that number to stay down probably for several years, and then it explodes and probably triples to quadruples from there in a relatively short amount of time, because it'll be much more cost effective.
Now, you mentioned insurance before, and I'm a little bit confused. Are there any insurance companies that you know of that are paying for evaluations?
They're not paying for the medication, and let me set the record straight. By no means am I an attorney or give legal advice, but from my experience, let me give you an example. I had my ACL repaired, right? And when I got it repaired, Blue Cross Blue Shield paid for the whole thing. Well, my doctor, who's a great orthopedist and now a friend and a client, he actually recommended something called PRP, platelet-rich plasma. That's when they take your blood, they spin it 8,000 times in a centrifuge, they take the white blood cells out, and then they inject it back to the area that they're trying to, and I apologize, the landscapers are outside, but
we're good.
Then they inject it back into the area that's being treated, and it helps you heal better and grows that tissue back, in a manner that's typically, according to some research, that is faster than the alternative. So what I've seen in certain states, some doctors, there's a CPT code, right, for any patient that comes in that has one of the approved conditions, right? So in other words, you can come in for an evaluation. No patient's guaranteed to get any medication before being evaluated, right? So some doctors will actually you go through and charge or bill the insurance company because it's an evaluation. They don't know they're giving you medical marijuana until they know that they think it can help you, right? But the certification, there's no CPT code for that obviously yet, because this isn't federally approved. So that part is where the physician will either do it, charge a fee for that part of the treatment.
Right. So,
and the medication, obviously, we know is not federally approved except for a few out there like GW Pharma or Sativix, Marinol, a couple of those other drugs.
So are insurance companies paying for those because they're FDA approved? The Epidiolex and Sativex?
Yes, and my understanding that Epidiolex costs about $32,500 a year to the insurance companies.
Right, and about $1,500 if you go buy it in Colorado from some people that have been making it for 10 years. It's a big discrepancy there, and it's all going to change. Now, something major that will change, that's probably really going to help out MarijuanaDoctors.com is insurance, which we just talked about, but insurance eventually will cover this medicine, like you said, when it's FDA approved, when the Schedule I has disappeared, and so forth. I know of one company that I interviewed maybe a year ago or so. I think their name was Novus. I can't remember, but they actually have a program that will pay part of your medical cannabis your purchases and so forth. I think they're out of Texas.
Are they a nonprofit or?
No, I don't believe they're a nonprofit. They also give you vision and dental, and they're paying for part of and they have dispensaries signed up around the country in certain states where part of your cannabis is going to be covered. So I'll send you some information on that. But this is going to happen. We're going to have can assurance in the future. It's obvious because this is a real medicine, and it's going to have to be covered. So what are your thoughts? You're saying 3 to 5 years before something like that might happen?
I'd say somewhere between 4 to 6 years before that happens. The FDA has a mandate now to basically speed up the process and make a decision here because they have so much heat on them, from attorneys to lobbyists to those in the industry that are sick, need treatment, or other folks that have a relative and they're just fighting for this cause because they're seeing things work.
Veterans.
There's so much evidence out there that it's working.
Veterans need this medicine, and the VA is fighting, not allowing them in certain places to use it. I saw another thing the other day about the VA. So there's people out there fighting, to help the veterans and everybody else that needs this medicine. So anything else that you'd like to touch on that we didn't talk about with MarijuanaDoctors.com?
To me, it's just important that the word is out there to your listeners. If you have any question whatsoever about the laws, about the medicine, you want to see research, you want to find a doctor, we're really the easiest way to do it. And one of our strengths and value is that when you Google marijuana doctor, cannabis doctor, medical marijuana card in your city or state, you'll typically see us in the first couple links on Google. And that's because, Google's saying that we're a trusted resource, based on our credibility. And at the same time, the traffic that we're getting and the attention that the internet gives us, because we're educating the consumer so they can make an informed decision, schedule an appointment with a physician on demand or for a later date. And the other point I wanted to make, one of the reasons I walked away from a 20-year career on Wall Street as a vice president of a global investment bank was I have 4 children myself. And we have a serious problem with narcotics these days.
Oh boy, yeah.
Right? Everyone knows someone who overdosed or died, or someone's a family that's been affected by opioids. And we are so committed because we think that we're being part of the solution right now, and we're going to help reduce this opioid epidemic and some of the other drugs that are prescribed out there. And that's one of the top 4 reasons why I joined MarijuanaDoctors.com, so we can really leave an impact on society with a beneficial footprint. I will say that if your listeners want to have an understanding of anything in the industry, go check out our site. It's MarijuanaDoctors.com. Educate yourself. You need to be able to make an informed decision and have the information to do so. And that's one of the things that we're providing. Just to make a point also that we actually just launched the dispensary section of our site. So you'll be able to literally go on and go to the dispensary within our site, order medication in states where it's legally approved. We follow all state laws, and get the product delivered to your house or go pick it up. And, we don't charge a fee to the patient. We don't charge fees to the patients for anything. You will be responsible to pay whatever the doctor charges, and they vary per state and for your medication. But we want to provide the best user experience so we can really be part of the solution and make an impact that we've been doing already. And after 10 years, we've referred over 450,000 pre-screened patients that have been, we estimate that, we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 350 to 400,000 patients that have been certified through our service. It's a tough thing to quantify, but we do know, based on the feedback from our physicians, that they're getting very impressive results, and that's what keeps us motivated every day and committed to help this industry really come to fruition.
Well, the fact that you guys have been around for 10 years must give a lot of confidence to people that go to your website, get that information. They know that you're not a fly-by-night and that you're going to be here for a lot longer. So Ray Correa, COO of MarijuanaDoctors.com, thank you very much. If in the future you have anything new to add to your business model, if Canna Assurance starts to happen, give us a call and we'll have you back on again. It was a pleasure having you today.
Likewise, Larry. And if there's anything that we can do, if there's some point that you would like to get across to your listeners, or something that we can help spread the word to really educate the marketplace and the consumer to see if this is for them or not, we want to place the power in the people.
Absolutely.
And that's where it should be.
Well,
So
absolutely.
if anyone needs to find anything out about anything in the industry, you could go to marijuanadoctors.com. You can email us. We're happy to answer questions. If you call us, we're happy to help patients, give them some guidance, and really make them feel comfortable so they can decide what's best for them with their physician.
Thank you very much, Ray. This is a great plant that is going to help a lot of people. It's a terrible thing that for the last 80 years plus that people have unnecessarily suffered because of the prohibition that people are continuing to fight, and the fight goes on. Ray Correa from MarijuanaDoctors.com, thank you very much. And we'll be right back after this.
Warning. The Surgeon General warns. Cigarette smoking is dangerous. Dangerous. Hazard to your health. Does that mean anything to you? Them legalize marijuana. Right here in Jamaica, yeah. Them say it cure glaucoma, yeah. I'm an bush doctor, yeah. So there'll be no more smoking and feeling tense. When I see them come, I don't have to jump no fence. Legalize marijuana. Down here in Jamaica, only cure for asthma, yeah. I'm an minister, yeah. So there'll be no more police brutality, no more disrespect for humanity. Legalize marijuana, down here in Jamaica, yeah. It can build up a failing economy, yeah. Eliminate
I want to thank Ray Correa from MarijuanaDoctors.com. If you're in a state and you're having a hard time finding someone to certify you, check out MarijuanaDoctors.com. Thank you, Ray. Also want to thank my two radio mentors, both with the initials HS. Thank you for your inspiration. If you'd like to be, and thank you, Anthony Brick, for doing the bumper, by the way. Thank you, buddy. Keep the fight. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, if you have a product to sell, a story to tell, you're an activist, you're an advocate, write me at info@mmjradio.com. Again, info@mmjradio.com. If you'd like to hear some of our older shows, this is our 10th year. MedicalMarijuanaRadio.com is the place to go, or MMJRadio.com. Also, my YouTube channel is LSLove88. On SoundCloud and Spreaker, we're MMJ Radio. CannabisTube.net, we have our own channel, MMJ Radio. On Now TV, channel 937. And coming soon, CannaChannel.com.
The medical marijuana.
Shalabah.
Peace, love, and chaos where it needs.
Shalom.
Oh, yeah. And, fuck Trump.
Babu